Good day, good day, good day, good day, good day, everyone. Welcome, grade 7 students. This is your English class with Teacher Ross. How are you today? Are you excited to learn new things? Very good. Today, we will discuss voices of the verb. But before we start, let us have a short introduction about the subject, verb, and object of a sentence. Let us start with a subject. A subject is the person, place, thing, or idea that the sentence is about. For example, John writes a letter. John is the subject in this sentence. Next, let's have the verb. The verb is the action that is being performed by the subject. It explains what the subject does. For example, John writes a letter. The word writes is the verb in this sentence. Remember that a verb should always agree to its subject. Then we have the object. The object is the person or thing that receives the action of the verb. For example, John writes a letter. The word letter is the object in this sentence. Now, I think you are ready for our main topic, voices of the verb. Let us begin. Active, passive. What is voice? Voice of the verb focuses on the function of the being either the doer, performer, or the receiver of the action. Voice also refers to the who or what is doing the verb's action in a sentence. Now, it's time for concepts and definitions. Let us start with the active voice. Active voice occurs when the subject of the sentence acts as the performer or doer of the action. It also means that the subject is doing the action. And it has an active subject. For example, the boy plays the piano. Boy is the subject, plays is the verb, and piano is the object. The boy is doing the action. Therefore, the boy is the active subject. Because the boy is the active subject, then this sentence, the boy plays the piano, is written in the active voice. Very good. Now let us have the passive voice. Passive voice occurs when the subject of the sentence acts as the receiver of the action. Though it is not always present, the doer of the action in passive voice is introduced by the preposition by, and it has a passive subject. Let's have an example. The piano is played by the boy. Piano is the subject. Is played is the verb. The piano is receiving or not doing the action. Therefore, the piano is the passive subject. Because the piano is the passive subject or it is not doing the action, then this sentence is written in the passive voice. But who is doing the action? Very good. The boy. So it is the doer but not the subject. That's why the sentence "the piano is played by the boy" is written in the passive voice because the subject is the receiver and not the doer. So, those are the differences and forms of voices. But wait, there's more. I have a tip. So, to figure out whether a sentence is in active or passive voice, look at the subject. Is the subject performing the action or receiving the action? But the question is, why do we care? It is because active voice is more concise, clear and brief, easier to understand, and less work for your readers. Also, keep in mind, in transforming a verb from active to passive or vice versa, take note of the tense of the verb. If the verb in active voice is in present tense, the passive voice should also be in present tense, and vice versa. However, the form of the verb as to S or simple forms vary depending on the number of the subjects. Remember, a verb should always agree to its subject. In passive voice, the main verb is usually introduced by an auxiliary verb. Let us try. Now, let us see what I mean. Let us have first the simple present tense. In active voice, Jason prepares his meals. Jason is the singular subject and the doer of the verb or the action prepares, and the word prepares is also a singular verb. And his meals is the object. Now, let us have the sentence in passive voice. His meals are prepared by Jason. His meals here is a plural subject and it is not the doer of the action or the verb are prepared. Are prepared is a plural verb. And Jason is the doer but not the subject. Take note that if the sentence is in simple present tense, always observe the rules on subject-verb agreement. We have here a singular subject and a singular verb, a plural subject and a plural verb. Next, let us have the simple past tense. In active voice, Ethan informed his clients on the status of their order. Ethan here is the subject and the doer of the action or the verb informed, and his client is the object. In passive voice, his clients were informed by Ethan on the status of their order. His clients now will be the subject but not the doer of the action were informed, which is our verb, and then Ethan is the doer but not the subject. If your verb in the active voice is in simple past tense, your verb in the passive voice should also be in simple past tense. Next, let us have the simple future tense. In active voice, the students will submit their report tomorrow. The students here is the subject, and the doer of the action or the verb will submit, and then their report is the object. In passive voice, their report will be submitted by the students tomorrow. Now, the subject here is their report, which is the receiver and not the doer of the action will be submitted. And then the students here will be the doer but not the subject. That's why it is in passive voice. Next, let us have the present perfect tense. In active voice, we have the school has decided to shut off its operations. The school here is the singular subject and the doer of the action or the verb has decided. The verb phrase has decided is singular. Then we have its operations as our object. Now, in passive voice, it will become its operations have been decided to shut off by the school. Your subject now is operations, which is a plural subject, and the receiver, not the doer of the action or the verb phrase, have been decided. So take note, we have here a plural subject, then a plural verb phrase, then the school will be the doer but not the subject. Next, let us have the past perfect tense. In active voice, Athena had studied English before she moved to the US. The subject here is Athena, and the doer of the action or the verb phrase had studied. And English is the object. Now, in passive voice, it will become English had been studied by Athena before she moved to the US. English now is the subject but not the doer of the action had been studied. And then Athena here is the doer but not the subject. Then we also have future perfect tense. In active voice, Anthony will have baked the cake before he leaves. Anthony here is the subject and the doer of the action or the verb phrase will have baked, and then the cake or cake is the object. In passive voice, it will become the cake will have been baked by Anthony before he leaves. The cake now will be the subject but not the doer. It is the receiver of the action will have been baked, and Anthony here is the doer but not the subject. Note, active and passive voices of the verb may also occur in the progressive tense. Remember, active voice occurs when the subject of the sentence acts as the performer or doer of the action. And passive voice occurs when the subject of the sentence acts as the receiver of the action. So always look at the subject in a sentence. Is it the doer of the action or the receiver of the action? You decide. Now, activity time. Identify whether each sentence is in active or passive voice. Then, transform each statement from active to passive and vice versa. Let us have number 1. Noli Me Tangere is considered by experts as an enlightening novel. Is this in active or passive voice? Very good! This is in passive voice. Noli Me Tangere here is a singular subject and the receiver, not the doer, of the action or the verb is considered, which is a singular verb phrase, and experts as the doer but not the subject. Let us transform this into an active voice. Experts consider Noli Me Tangere as an enlightening novel. The word experts is a plural subject, and the doer of the action or the verb consider, which is a plural verb, and Noli Me Tangere is the object. In simple present tense, we need to observe rules on subject-verb agreement. We have here a singular subject and a singular verb, a plural subject and a plural verb. Next, the Spaniards colonized the Philippines. Is this in active or passive voice? Correct! This is in active voice. The Spaniards as the subject or the doer of the action or the verb colonized. And Philippines is the object. Now let us transform this into a passive voice. The Philippines was colonized by the Spaniards. The Philippines is a singular subject and the receiver, not the doer of the action, was colonized, which is a singular verb phrase, and the Spaniards as the doer but not the subject. Then we have the mayor declared a state of calamity. Is this in active or passive voice? Very good! This is in active voice. The mayor here is the subject or the doer of the action or the verb declared, and state of calamity is the object. Now let us transform this into a passive voice. A state of calamity was declared by the mayor. A state of calamity here is now our singular subject. The receiver but not the doer of the action was declared, which is a singular verb phrase, and the mayor as the doer but not the subject. So if the sentence or the verb is in simple past tense, in active voice, the verb in passive voice must be in simple past tense as well. Alright, very good. So that would be all. Alright, very good. So that would be all for this video. I hope you learned something today. Thank you for listening and watching. Have a nice day!